Hello, West Seattle High School faculty. This is a video about how we're going to be arranging and storing files for the whole building next year. For this year, we were in this West Seattle High School staff collaboration page for emergency reasons. And as you can see, it's already gotten very crowded and very confusing. So we're going to be switching to Sharepoint, or actually switching back to Sharepoint. So for those of you guys who don't know how to get to Sharepoint, basically what you do is you go to, your login for Microsoft Office and look for these 9 dots up here, the little waffle thing. And when you click on this, it will open up all your various, programs possible, and you're going to want SharePoint. So click on SharePoint. So once again, 9 dots in the upper left, click that, SharePoint. And in SharePoint, ideally, you will have this West Seattle High School 0365 thing here, and you might have to scroll for this, especially if you have all of those old those like automatically generated Teams classes that nobody ever used. So anyway, you're looking for West Seattle High School 0365. If you don't have it, you can search for it in SharePoint, and then you're going to want to make sure this little following dot is clicked if it's not, so that it's always there when you click on SharePoint. And so then you're going to click on this West Seattle High School SharePoint site. And then this is auto-generated by the district, so we can't change it, so there's yet one more click. These are basically all the stuff. The only one we're actually using is curriculum and school operations. So this one right here, curriculum and school operations. It's also in the list right here. Curriculum and school operations in the West Seattle High School 0365 SharePoint. So when you click on this, this opens up basically the, like a version of your OneDrive effectively, although OneDrive is personal and therefore not useful for this kind of thing. And SharePoint is shared by the entire building. All right. And at this point, what I would recommend is that you bookmark this page. So if you use your little bookmark star thing here, especially if you put it up here in the bookmarks bar or somewhere like that, or in your other bookmarks where you can find it. So because you're going to be able to get to this pretty quickly. So as you can see, we have tried to strip this down to where there's only 7 possible places to put stuff on the front page or in the the top level of curriculum and school operations. So if you think about what this looks like, this is already getting massive and confusing. So we're going back trying to make it a little more straightforward. And as you can imagine, in the committee and decision makers folder here, if you go to this, here, for example, is the building leadership team. IC will be in there. All the things that right now only the people on those committees can see because they're hidden in a Teams thing that only the Teams member can see, should be, if it's aimed at the whole building, in one of these folders. So there'll be department folders, student support services, all this other stuff. For those guys who remember SharePoint from before last year, or this year actually, there should be like 25 or 37 different folders. This is why we left it, because it got really confusing. But basically all of that stuff still exists. It's just in this number 7 archive files before April. So if you look in this, this is what SharePoint used to look like, and it's still pretty messy. Things haven't been moved around yet. So my ask for you guys is, if you know where something is in here, that you move it, and you move stuff using the 3 dots here. So if you hover over anything, you can grab these 3 dots, and then you can click to move to, and that'll allow you to move it somewhere. So for instance, if I wanted to move, say, instructional council, which I'm about to do, I'm going to move this to, going back up to curriculum and school operations, and I'm going to move that into committee decision makers folder. Move here. So this is really why we're moving back to this, because it's a lot easier to move files and folders in SharePoint than it would be to do it in, say, West Seattle High School staff collaboration Schoology page, which is really not made for file manipulation. So SharePoint will be nice and easy, and it's easy to move files around and things like that. And so, and everyone can get to it, unlike the committee teams or departmental teams and stuff like that. So basically anything that's supposed to go to the entire building next year will be in here. And this will avoid problems with stuff being awkward to move in school collaboration, impossible to see in Teams, and then very importantly, since a lot of people have been doing things in their own personal OneDrive accounts and then sharing those links through Teams, That will be very complicated as we get new faculty in the building and they won't have permissions, or if anyone ever leaves the building, then those OneDrive files would become invisible. So basically anything that you're going to do that requires the entire staff being able to get to it, or anything that has a kind of historical nature in the building, should be in this West Seattle High School O365 SharePoint. So once again, how to get there is you go to your basic login for Office, click on the three dots in the upper left, grab SharePoint, and then once in SharePoint, look for West Seattle High School O365, and then the one you want is Curriculum and School Operations. And then to avoid having to remember that, I would strongly recommend bookmarking this and putting this, somewhere really obvious in your bookmarks, either on your toolbar or at the top of your bookmarks, so you can easily get back to this when you need stuff like, that the whole building will use. So, and then one other little addition. I'm not sure we need this, but we made it anyway. It's a folder for video and digital images. And the reason for this is digital files can be really massive sometimes. Like if you think of those PowerPoints or videos for advisory, some of those are like gigabytes large. So because we may at some future point have trouble with files that giant, and obviously storing huge amounts of data is kind of a waste from year to year. So if it's something that is a massive video, it should go in here so that we don't end up with ginormous files scattered through the other stuff. But anyway, that's the basics of how we are using SharePoint next year. I hope it helps everyone out. Thank you. Goodbye.